6 Costco tires, everyone ignores. They're absolute gold mines. So don't be like me. For years, I walked up to that tire wall, pointed at whatever number was smallest, and said, that one. Never read a label, never asked a question. I figured a tire's a tire. Round, black, does its job, forget it exists until it doesn't. I was wrong. And I was wrong in a way that actually cost people money, replacement after replacement, without them ever knowing why. Somewhere between the free samples and the eye doctor, Costco is quietly selling tires that most independent shops would be thrilled to carry, at prices most drivers assume only come with a catch. There isn't one. Have you ever walked past that wall without stopping? Most people have. Stick around, because by the end of this list, 2 of these 6 brands are going to turn out to be run by the exact same company. I'm not telling you which 2 yet. Number 6, Firestone. Everyone's heard the name. Almost nobody knows the story behind it. Harvey Firestone opened a small rubber shop in Akron, Ohio in 1900. Within a few years, he landed the account that made the company tires for Henry Ford's Model T, right as the car stopped being a rich man's toy and started showing up in regular driveways. Firestone and Ford weren't just doing business together either. They were close friends, close enough that Firestone joined Ford, Thomas Edison, and the naturalist John Burroughs on a string of famous camping trips through the American wilderness in the 1910s and 20s. 4 of the most famous men in the country, pitching tents together like it was nothing. The tires Costco sells under that name today, models like the Destination and the Weather Grip, are built to solve one boring but real problem. Rubber that's soft enough to grip an icy road in January tends to turn to mush on a hot highway in July. Rubber built for July tends to go hard and slippery the second it gets cold. Getting one tire to handle both without falling apart early is the actual engineering fight hiding behind a tire that just feels fine. Most drivers never think about that trade-off once. They just notice, 3 years later, that the ride feels a little harsher than it used to, and assume it's the road, not the rubber. Here's the part that stings a little. Firestone hasn't been an independent American company since 1988. That year, a Japanese tire giant bought it outright, in what was, at the time, one of the largest foreign takeovers of a US manufacturer ever recorded. Then, 12 years after that sale closed, Firestone tires ended up at the center of one of the biggest tire recalls in American history. Millions of tires pulled off the road, treads separating from the rubber underneath. Congressional hearings, years of lawsuits. It took the brand 2 full decades to rebuild that trust, one warehouse at a time, and it worked well enough that most people under 40 have never heard a word of it. Right now, Costco is knocking $60 instantly off any set of 4 new Firestones, installation included. Almost nobody grabbing that deal knows any of that history came along for the ride. Picture the guy loading up a minivan for a 10-hour drive to see his parents, buying Firestones because that's what was on his dad's truck growing up. He has no idea he's driving on a tire built by a company most Americans couldn't even name if you ask them. And he has no idea how hard that name worked just to earn its way back onto this wall. Here's the regret timestamp on this one. Somewhere, a driver bought a cheap off-brand tire years ago instead of a Firestone, chasing a slightly lower number on a sticker, and ended up replacing that same set 18 months later when the tread wore through unevenly. He never made the connection between the brand he skipped and the money he lost doing it twice. Quick thing before we move on. A lot of you ask how to actually match a tire to your specific car instead of just picking a brand you recognize. I put together a simple checklist for that. It's linked below. Back to the case. Firestone is the name everybody already trusts, without knowing why. Number 5 is the name that trusts nobody but itself, and races because of it. Pirelli. Founded in Milan in 1872 by a 24-year-old engineer named Giovanni Battista Pirelli. And here's the twist most people never learn. The company's very first products weren't tires at all. They were rubber-coated telegraph cables, laid under the Alps and across the bottom of the Mediterranean before Pirelli ever touched a wheel. Tires came later. Racing came right after that, because Pirelli figured out early that the fastest way to prove a tire is any good is to strap it to a car going as fast as physics allows, in front of a crowd that won't forgive a failure. That instinct never left the company. Pirelli has been the exclusive tire supplier to Formula One since 2011. Every debate you've ever watched a pit crew have on TV, soft tire or hard tire, how many laps before the grip disappears, that's happening on a Pirelli. The road tires sitting in Costco's case come straight out of that same research. Rubber built to hold its shape under cornering forces a daily driver will genuinely never touch. But that translates, at normal speeds, into a tire that actually grips when it matters. A wet on-ramp, a sudden stop, the two moments most drivers only find out what their tires are made of. Nobody plans for that moment. It just arrives, usually in bad weather, usually when you're already running late, and whatever's wrapped around your wheels at that exact second is the only thing standing between a close call and an accident. Here's the reframe. Pirelli still wears the Italian racing image like a birthright, but the company itself hasn't been Italian-owned since 2015, when a Chinese state-owned company bought a majority stake in it. The flag stays on the marketing. The ownership sits in Beijing. Most people cross-shopping tires at a warehouse club have no idea they're looking at a piece of Chinese industrial strategy every time they glance at that yellow and black logo. Outside Costco, Pirelli usually carries a real luxury markup, the kind of price that makes people assume it's just out of reach. Right now at Costco, any Pirelli order over $500 gets free installation folded straight in, which quietly narrows a gap that normally keeps this brand off most people's list before they even look twice. Think about the guy who drives a plain, base model Honda, but has strong opinions about the racing he watches every Sunday morning. He's never once considered that the tire under his own car could share real DNA with the tires under the cars he watches for fun. Until he's standing in a Costco parking lot, an arm's length from that exact decision, with no idea he could just make it. Have you ever assumed a name was out of your budget before you even checked the price? That's the entire reason Pirelli sits quietly in this case, mostly untouched, while shoppers wheel their carts right past it toward a name they already recognize. Pirelli races for a living. Number 4, would rather you never notice it's working at all. Bridgestone, founded in Japan in 1931 by a man named Shojiro Ishibashi. His last name, translated directly, means stone bridge. He flipped it into English for the company name, a quiet joke hiding in plain sight for almost 100 years. Bridgestone grew from a Japanese tire maker into the single largest tire company on Earth by volume, and it got there in large part by buying an American company outright in 1988. You already know which one. That's Firestone, back at number 6 on this exact list, the very first name in this video. Two brands sitting in the same Costco case, priced differently, marketed differently, run out of the same headquarters in Tokyo. You could genuinely walk out of a Costco tire bay having compared a company against itself and never known it. The engineering focus on the Bridgestone side of the family is quiet, literally. The Turanza Quiet Track line uses a tread pattern built to cancel out the low hum that road noise usually makes, the kind of sound your brain edits out so well you'd swear it was never there. That's not a small thing. A quieter tire changes how tired you feel after a 2-hour drive, in a way most people blame on the car itself, or their own energy, rather than the 4 pieces of rubber doing the actual work. Bridgestone carries none of Firestone's recall baggage in most people's minds. It gets treated like the premium, trustworthy option 1 aisle over from its own subsidiary. Right now, Costco is taking $80 instantly off any set of 4 Bridgestones, installation included, on a tire priced closer to what you'd expect from a top-tier Michelin than from the company it secretly owns. Ask 10 shoppers standing in that aisle which one is the budget brand and which one is premium, and every single one of them will answer with total confidence. Almost none of them will realize they just described one company twice. There's a woman out there right now, driving a long commute in a dead quiet car, crediting her vehicle's sound insulation for a peaceful drive that's actually coming from 4 tires most people walk right past without reading the name twice. If you swapped her tires out tonight and put her back on a plain set tomorrow, she'd notice something was wrong within the first mile, and she'd probably never trace it back to the rubber at all. Bridgestone works hard to be forgettable, in the best possible way. Number 3 works hard to be unforgettable, out in the desert, and it's holding a secret we're not naming yet. BFGoodrich. This brand goes back further than anything else on this list. 1870. Founded in Akron by Dr. Benjamin Franklin Goodrich, who built the first rubber factory west of the Appalachian Mountains, at a time when nearly all serious American manufacturing was still hugging the East Coast. People thought he was making a mistake, building a rubber plant that far from the ports and rail hubs everyone else relied on. He built it anyway, Decades later, BFGoodrich released the first tubeless tire ever sold to American drivers in 1947. Then, in 1965, the first American-made radial tire, years ahead of competitors who were still building the older style and would keep building it for years after that, watching the market slowly prove them wrong, one customer at a time. This is a brand with real engineering firsts behind its name, not marketing language borrowed from somebody else. But the thing that actually built BFGoodrich's reputation isn't a lab spec, it's a race through the Baja California desert. For decades, BFGoodrich has built tread and sidewalls to survive exactly what off-road racing throws at them: sharp rock, deep sand, brutal swings in temperature. Then it sells that same construction to regular drivers as the all-terrain TA line, without watering it down for the street version. The KO3 sitting on Costco's wall right now isn't a soft, commercial-friendly copy of a race tire. It's built off the same philosophy the company tests every single year, in an actual desert, on an actual course, where a tire that fails on lap 1 doesn't get a second chance. It just loses, out loud, in front of everyone watching. On price, the KO3 sits in serious truck and SUV territory, not economy sedan territory. Even so, Costco's number still lands below what most independent shops charge for the same tread. That's a real gap for anyone who's already decided they want actual off-road capability, not a highway tire wearing tough-looking sidewall graphics for show. Here's the detail that should stop you cold, though. BFGoodrich's tire-making operation hasn't belonged to BFGoodrich the company for over 30 years. It's still real. It still builds genuinely respected off-road rubber. It just isn't reporting to who you'd assume, based on the name stamped into the sidewall. We're naming exactly who owns it before this list is over, and once we do, it's going to change how you see two brands on this list, not just one. It's a name you've already met tonight, standing right next to you the entire time. Somewhere out there is a guy who lifted his truck 8 months ago and still hasn't taken it off pavement once. He's running BFGoodrich KO3s to the grocery store because the capability feels good to have, even sitting unused in the driveway. That's not nothing, that's its own kind of value. The same way a genuinely good pair of hiking boots still means something on the days you only wear them to walk the dog around the block. And somewhere else, there's a driver who bought a cheaper all-terrain lookalike instead, chasing a lower price tag on a tire that only looked the part. 2 years later, he's replacing it early after the sidewall gave out on a trail the BFGoodrich would have shrugged off without a second thought. BFGoodrich earned its reputation in the dirt, mile after mile, without asking for much credit. Number 2 is the brand that quietly decides which restaurants in Paris deserve a star. And yes, it also happens to own the brand we just talked about, Michelin. Founded in Clermont-Ferrand, France in 1889 by brothers André and Édouard Michelin, within 6 years the company had already put the first removable tire on a car at the 1895 Paris to Bordeaux race, a real breakthrough at a time when most tires were solid rubber or glued permanently onto the wheel. Back then, a single flat could end your entire trip and leave you stranded for days, waiting on a wheel repair rather than a quick roadside fix. Michelin solved that, and it spent the next century staying, arguably, the most respected tire engineering name on the planet. The brand every other tire company quietly measures itself against, whether they'd admit it out loud or not, the name that shows up in every competitor's internal benchmark testing whether the public ever hears about it or not. Here's the detail almost nobody connects back to tires at all. In 1900, the Michelin brothers put out a small book meant to get French drivers to put more miles on their cars. Restaurant listings, hotel picks, basic repair advice. Why? Because more miles driven meant more tires worn out and replaced. That little promotional booklet became the Michelin Guide, and the star rating system inside it is now the single most respected honor in professional cooking anywhere in the world. Chefs spend entire careers chasing stars from a rating system that exists, at its very core, because a tire company wanted people to drive farther. Have you ever heard a restaurant called Michelin Starred and never once connected that phrase back to the tires on your own car? Almost everyone has. That's how completely this brand's tire roots got buried under its own side project. Every decision behind lines like the Cross Climate 2, backed by the same 5-year road hazard warranty every passenger tire in Costco's case carries, comes from a company that built its whole identity on obsessive engineering. Outside Costco, a Cross Climate 2 in a common size has recently run close to $200 a tire at full price, before any rebate. Inside the warehouse, that gap narrows enough that best tire in the world, if you can afford it, quietly turns into best tire in the world and you actually can. That's a completely different decision to be standing in front of. We still haven't told you which other name on this exact wall belongs to Michelin's own corporate family. We will, in exactly one item. And once you hear it, you're going to want to walk straight back to that case and look at both tires differently. Here's a question worth sitting with while we get there. Have you ever bought two products, years apart, never once realizing they came from the exact same company? Most people have done this without knowing it. In grocery aisles, in electronics stores, in car dealerships. This case is no different. You just haven't been told which two names to watch for yet. Michelin built its whole name on precision. Number one has been quietly wearing that exact same precision under a completely different badge for over 30 years. There's no new name at number one. That's the whole point. In 1990, Michelin bought BFGoodrich's entire tire-making operation and folded it directly into the same company that builds every Michelin tire sitting right next to it. Not a licensing deal, not two companies sharing a factory, full ownership. Every BFGoodrich KO3 you looked at 2 items ago on this exact list rolled off the production line of a company that also invented the modern radial tire and, almost as an afterthought, decided which restaurants in Paris deserve a star. That's a strange kind of family tree for a tire to have. One branch spent a century supplying the toughest deserts on Earth. The other branch spent that same century deciding which chef in France earns a second star. Both branches ended up in the same Costco parking lot, on the same wall, under fluorescent lighting, 3 feet apart, with nobody standing there to explain the connection. Sit with that for a second because it's easy to let a sentence like that slide right past you. The rugged desert brand and the refined precision brand aren't rivals sitting on opposite ends of Costco's wall fighting for your money. They never were. They're the same company, wearing 2 different personalities, priced differently, sold to 2 completely different customers who have no idea they're the same customer as far as the company's own books are concerned. One gets a truck commercial with a guy fording a river, the other gets a quiet European voiceover talking about precision. Same engineers, most likely, sitting in offices down the hall from each other, deciding which personality a given tread pattern deserves to wear out the door. Think back to Bridgestone and Firestone, 3 items ago on this exact list. That was the first thread. This is the second. 2 separate pairs of names, 4 brands total out of the 6 on this list tonight, and every single one of them turns out to answer to somebody else the moment you look past the badge on the sidewall. 2 out of 6 isn't a coincidence. It's how this entire industry actually works, quietly consolidated behind names built to look like competitors. That should genuinely change how you shop that wall from now on. If you've ever stood at a Costco tire bay, torn between the rugged-feeling BFGoodrich and the polished-feeling Michelin, wondering which one was the smarter buy, you were never actually choosing between 2 philosophies of tire engineering. You were choosing between 2 labels made by the same engineers to the same standard for the same parent company, one dressed for the desert, one dressed for Paris. Neither one is secretly the real tire while the other is a knockoff. They're both real. They're just wearing different clothes. None of these 6 brands ever needed a glass showroom or a spot on a Formula One grid to prove the rubber under the badge was real.